Hey everybody, today we're going to learn how to use the heat vision or thermal vision effect on the new Visionary Effects bundle. So once you've downloaded and imported the package on the Unity Assets Store, you will want to go to the project within Unity, and you'll see here on the bottom left, Visionary Effects VFX bundle. So we're going to go to here, and we're going to click on VFX preset cameras right here. In here, we're going to find complex heat vision, and we're going to drag this camera into the scene. This is a prefab by default that automatically comes with the default settings. So this is actually a great view of how this thermal vision works. You see, we have these characters here that are marked off with different tags. See, this is the arms are labeled warm, the pants are labeled hot, the shirt is labeled hot, the vest is labeled warm. All these different things that actually give us a kind of unique heat profile here. Now also in this scene, you will see that we have two objects here, this wall over here on the left and this wall over here on the right. You'll notice if we move this camera just a little bit to the left actually, this wall here actually blocks the thermal vision, whereas this wall here does not block the thermal vision. In fact, you can actually see through the wall and see the character's arm here on the right. Now, what enables this is layers. So, by default, if you are close enough to the character, if your camera is close enough to the character in-game, it automatically lets you see the character through the walls. This enables a relatively realistic thermal vision viewing. Now, if you do not want to be able to see the characters through the walls, you will simply need to select the wall in question and add this HeatOpaque layer. All one word, HeatOpaque. Once you've added that layer, it will make it so that you are not able to see through that wall. Unless your camera clips through the wall. So here you can see, actually, as we go further away, the thermal vision stops working. But as we get closer, the thermal vision actually starts kicking in. Now let's go over a few of the settings of this heat vision effect, this thermal vision effect. So in the inspector window, we will see at the top, this is the heat layer, a HeatOpaque layer that actually disables the heat X-ray vision. So you can actually set this layer to whatever you want. You could actually set it to, say, everything, in which case everything will block the heat X-ray effect, or nothing will block the heat X-ray effect. But if you want specific objects to block the thermal X-ray effect, just simply create a layer up here, add a layer, and say I want building 7. Go back to your camera, find the HeatOpaque layer again, and select Building 7, HeatOpaque. And let's actually name this layer Building 7. And now, this wall will block any heat X-ray vision. I'm going to set that to default for now, just for the tutorial's sake. The next thing that you'll want to know is the different tags that are used for this. There are 5 different heat tags that you can apply to objects in-game. First is cold, then we have warm, warmer, hot, and very hot. And you can actually add more of these if you want, but that would be a little bit more detailed. This slider actually controls like the heat value, so this would make it, this actually follows off of this gradient heat grade thing here. But since this is cold, we're going to actually keep that relatively low at a 0.2. But these are actually the tag names, so you can actually change these if you want. Very customizable. So if you wanted to change the tags required, see, this right now is tagged cold. But if you wanted to add your own tags into this and change it in the camera, you can actually do that if you really wanted to. The next setting would be this heat gradient. By default, the camera uses a gradient view, which actually trumps this banded color fallback setting. This creates a more realistic view, in my opinion. So that is enabled by default. But if you do not want the gradient view, these would be the controls for the colors of everything that's cold or anything that's warm. And they do have a sort of natural gradient to them as it is already. They naturally fall somewhere between these two colors based upon the center of the screen. The next setting that we're going to talk about is the output and background intensity. So this would be for the overlay effect of the thermal heat vision that we have here. If we lower the intensity, we actually see more of the scene, but as we increase it, we actually see more of the thermal vision effect. So this could be placed anywhere for whatever artistic means that you want. You could have it about halfway, so you still see a little bit more of the scene's reality, or you could actually kind of increase it a little bit, so you see a lot more of the thermal colors. By default, it is set all the way up to 1. The next setting that we are going to talk about is the colorize unassigned as cold function. This function enables the entire background, things that are not tagged, to automatically be tagged as cold. So if we disable this, you will see that only the tagged objects and characters will have this thermal shader effect, whereas anything untagged will keep the colors and shaders of the world without the thermal vision. Next, we will talk about outlines and heat edges. So this actually is disabled by default, but if we increase it, it actually gives us this more defined look into the thermal vision. I wouldn't recommend turning it all the way up, but just a little bit does actually create a kind of cool, more detailed effect, as you can see here. If we zoom in, we can see that the grass is a lot more detailed looking. And the resolution for this can also be scaled with this mask resolution scale too. By default, I'm going to actually turn this all the way down because I don't think I really like it that much. But you can also change the color if you really wanted to. Make it green. But yeah. Now the mask resolution scale also actually affects the resolution of the entire thing, regardless of the outline color or edges. I think it actually looks best with the resolution up high, but if you wanted it to look maybe a little bit more retro, you could turn it all the way down if you wanted to. Next we have center heat bias. This actually is best demonstrated in person. So as you see, as I move the center off just a little bit, you'll see that the gradient actually kind of leaves. This creates a very interesting effect as the camera is moving. So best to demonstrate this in-game. So you'll see that when we play and we move around, the colors tend to shift a little bit depending on where they are at in the camera's focal view. And if you were to adjust the heat bias off to a little bit to the left, it affects that very greatly. You can also increase the fall off of this if you wanted to really make it narrow. I don't know why you'd want to, but if you really wanted to make this rather wide, you could do that too. I like it somewhere in between. Around 0.7 is good for me. Next, we have heat curve. Now, this actually is relatively very similar to the fall-off bias, but it's rather more of the intensity, I believe. About 1 is a good setting for me. Now, depth/normal shading. This actually makes things more three-dimensional. So by default, this is enabled so that you can actually kind of see the details in the faces, in the clothing, in the background. But if we disable this, you'll notice everything becomes a lot more flat. This could be used for different game styles, but if you're looking for a more three-dimensional look, one that's easier to navigate in-game, use the depth shading. You can also increase or decrease the intensity of this effect too, as well as the strength, more like the highlights around the edges. Makes a rather interesting effect. This actually could make a really good game effect. Now, the alpha handling in mask actually applies to any in-game object that has an alpha background. So if we disable this, you'll notice that all the particles in the background, because they have an alpha background, suddenly look like little squares. You can have that off if you want to, but for the best results, it's best to keep the alpha material masked. Now, this also applies to particles in particular. Respect vertex alpha. This, if you have that off, will make your particles look square. So if you're wondering why your particles look weird, you may have disabled either the particles in terrain alpha or the alpha handling and mask. Next, we will talk about the X-ray settings. So this is the X-ray minimum heat. So this is the minimum distance at which the X-ray starts to function. So the minimum X-ray heat. So you'll notice as we lower it, warmer things like the backpack I believe is labeled warm, but not hot, it suddenly becomes visible. You'll also notice that our particles suddenly lose their alpha masking. So that's something that you'll need to keep in mind. As you lower this, alpha materials may suddenly become unmasked. For best results to avoid this unmasking effect, I like to keep it above 0.40. Now we will actually talk about distancing. So this thermal heat vision actually works at specific distances through objects. So close up, we can see the character through the wall. But as we actually disappear and go further away, you'll notice they start to fade out. See, the person in the background starts to fade out, and the person in the foreground starts to fade out, and we can no longer see them through the walls. But the closer we get, the stronger their visual profile appears. Now we can actually increase or decrease this effect. So if we actually zoom out again, if we change the meters to say 10 meters, we can suddenly see a little bit of the profile, just a faint profile. But if we switch this to 15 meters, it becomes a little bit stronger. 20 meters, even stronger. 50 meters, about the same. So by default, it seems most realistic to keep around 9 meters distance. But you could change this to however you like. Thank you for watching this tutorial. I hope it's been helpful for you. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Or you can email me at BlastOffProductions1@gmail.com. Thank you very much.